All right, Caleb, you were the first of many to say, don't expand the college football playoff. I love it so much the way it is. But you did that. And
how do I sound? What do I sound like?
Well, tell me what you sound like, because we may disagree. Chattanooga Mortgage, congratulations. Your home just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chat Mortgage, chat with 2Ts mortgage.com. So do you think your stance looks stronger or weaker after the weekend?
I am thoroughly validated on my stance. That was the most boring slate of games I've ever watched, and you guys sacrificed the entire regular season for those games. I'm going to tell you something real quick, because I know what Dave's going to come back at me. I'm going to telegraph Dave's
Am I
response.
that predictable? Do you really know what I'm going to come back at you with?
The TV ratings from the regular season games.
Okay.
College football isn't. I'm sorry?
Were they down?
No, they were up. No, I'm saying you're going to come back at me with the TV ratings from the regular season games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't even think of that one, but I'll do that.
Huh?
TV ratings are up. I'll do that. I didn't think of that one, but since you gave it to me, I'll do it.
People are going to come back at me with this. Okay. I'm going to tell you a little bit. Guys, I studied history in college. College football is in the roaring 20s right now. And what I mean by that is because of the expanded playoff, TV ratings are up. Everything's going well. Even with the expanded playoff, has everybody watching college football in December now. They've expanded the postseason. So the ratings they're up. They're bringing in a lot of money. They've expanded, that's brought in more interest in the regular season. So TV ratings are up. But for those who don't know, the roaring 20s, when the stock market just kept going up and up, politicians would be like, hey, prosperity's just around the corner. If you take a second mortgage out on your house and go invest it all in the stock market, you're going to get rich too one day. And people were ignoring the gigantic signs that a crash was on the horizon. And what happened in 1929? The roaring 20s came to a very fast end with the stock market crash in October that launched the Great Depression, which became a worldwide catastrophe. College football, so the sign in the 20s was real estate development actually had stopped in 1926, and no one was paying attention to that. The sign for college football is the results of the playoffs this past weekend. People are watching the regular season right now because they're like, my team can go to the playoff and we can maybe win it. And it's like, nope, your team can't.
The hour for those that are curious. Go ahead.
Your team can't win it. There's no such thing as a Cinderella in college football. As a matter of fact, Eric Clayborne just said it. You beat me to it, Eric. You're right. Cinderellas don't exist in college football. Okay. So what's going to happen? I'm chicken or the egg. This is going to happen first. This isn't the first time this is going to happen. For the next 2 or 3 years, you will see outmatched teams in the first round of the playoff get blown out and make it very clear they didn't belong. Because Dave, can you at least give me this? There's a giant gap between number 1 to number 6 and number 7 to number 12 in college football, right? It's not like college basketball where 1 through 12 is kind of.
No, I totally agree. I think if you're outside of the top 8-ish, you probably have no shot of winning a national championship, whereas you could be in the top 30 of the teams that make the basketball tournament to win it.
Exactly. And so that's what showed this weekend is that there were these teams in the 10 to 12 range did not belong. And what's going to happen is this. This is not the first time that's going to happen.
Okay, are you ready? Just tell me when you're ready for my argument. All
right, I'm ready for it. Just give me one more second. This is going to happen next year and the year after. And eventually teams that were watching the regular season out of excitement will stop watching because they'll know that even if they go to the playoff, they're going to get blown out and humiliated in the first round.
Okay, here's where we differ greatly. I think the level of college football is better than it's ever been before, and I think that's because of the transfer portal and NIL money. I believe that the talent is spread out over more programs than it ever has been before. For goodness sake, we were talking about UNLV having some huge NIL pickups, and we were concerned about them at one point this season. And I believe that Tennessee will continue to be one of the elite teams, maybe elite's too strong of a word, championship-worthy teams for this foreseeable future, because I think the talent level is going to be pretty much spread out. I don't think you're going to see a Georgia or an Alabama dominate the way they have now that the NIL era. And this, for those that don't know, this is kind of the first year of really knowing what the NIL is and how to get things working. And it's going to go into institutional control, which will be even smarter. So I think Tennessee will continue to pound on the door. Now, the question I have, and it was on our message board, Mark Richt equal Josh Heupel. I can't answer that. I really can't. Like when Butch Jones was hired, I said I thought he would get Tennessee to 9 wins. I did not know if he would win double digits. I did not know if he would win a championship. With Josh Heupel, I honestly feel that he will win a championship, and he's knocking on the door, and he's not Mark Richt that'll win 10 games for 800 years. I don't believe he's that.
Okay, but my question to you, Dave, is do you think the talent will get spread out enough to an SMU could one day pull an upset in the first round of a playoff game?
I actually do. Yeah.
You
not this year, but yeah, I actually do. I think you have to do two things. This is what Tennessee tried to do this year. They tried to be really good in their top 22, right? Their first 22.
Mm-hmm. They did.
They rebuilt the defensive backfield. They did all that they need to do on the offensive line with Lance Hurd and spending money to get him. They took care of James Pierce. They did all that. But I still look at Josh Heupel as an elite coach because of how he was able to adjust in September when the deep passes weren't working nearly as often and into October, including the Oklahoma and Arkansas game. So I just don't see him slipping. And I will say this, when it comes to the college football playoff, I think you're going to see teams be closer. I actually think you'll see a 12 versus 5 or whatever it ends up being, 18 versus 1, be a tight, close game in 5 to 10 years. Not tomorrow, but in 5 to 10 years.
All right. So, well, I think Tennessee would always be there, even if there was not. And I think Tennessee in the earlier style of football could be there too. They've proven that. Here's where I could maybe get with you, but I'm having a hard time. I think the only way to really do this is you got to separate college football into tiers. You have to, if you're going to have this expanded playoff, you need to separate college football into tiers and maybe do a relegation model or something like that. But we're only a select group of teams from select conferences are allowed to participate in this playoff because these auto bids are just stupid. Now, we saw it over the weekend. SMU didn't belong. Arizona State's is going to prove they didn't belong. Boise State's going to prove they didn't belong. I mean, I get everybody didn't want Alabama in, but does anybody really believe that Alabama wouldn't have beaten SMU by 30 on a neutral field?
Probably. Last week brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, and Hahn. So what would Caleb Calhoun do to change the college football playoff? I'll give you that and more after 15 seconds from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
The first step to better vision is to visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at CCTI.
All right, Caleb, where do you see the college football playoff being in 5 to 10 years? I will say that it's 16 teams and that it's incredibly competitive from the top to bottom because I think NIL will spread it out. You just have to have – Tennessee was able to succeed this year because they didn't have too many injuries and they were talented on their top 22. They failed when they didn't have 23 to 85. That was where they struggled. Here's
where I think college football's going. And here's my hope of where it's going. Because, again, my wish is we would go back to 1990 and we had a bunch of 8-team, 10-team conferences and you just have a national champion picked at the end of the year. I thought college football was better that way. But
I just can't go in on that.
Matter
of fact, Peyton wants to weigh in on that.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Thank you, Peyton.
Well, I don't care what Peyton thinks. Total
bullshit.
I, on the other hand, know that I am a realist. It's never going back. There's too much money being thrown around. My hope is that whenever the SEC and Big Ten break golf and form their own super league, I hope the other leagues that kind of form a conglomerate, I hope there becomes a relegation model like Premier League soccer, where you could play your way into the SEC and Big Ten, or you can play your way out. And then there's no conference. It's just a bunch of teams in the top league. They play each other and you just take the top 12.
So do you like that more than my Big Ten, SEC, AL, NL comparison?
Yeah, I like the no conference thing.
I do too, actually. The reason I laid that out there a few days ago was just as hopefully a stepping stone to get to what you're talking about.
Yeah,
no, I'd rather just have a mega conference with 36 teams.
Yeah, and then just randomly play 12. Just randomly play who you want to play. 12-game seasons, and you get rewarded on schedule, and then just take the top 12 teams, and the formula is the record and schedule strength. Call it a day. Get rid of auto bids. But this, Hog Dog says I was like 5 in 1990. No, actually I was 2 in 1990. So I was even younger, but I think I'm nostalgic for times before I was born. And I think college football was better before I was born, but that's just me.